Yeah. Well, I gave Rich a Jose Canseco arm bump. Okay, Jamie, we're all here.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, good.
So if we can call the board meeting to order, we'll then do a around the table sound check.
Okay, so I'm sharing today for Jamie, who's in Indian Wells having fun while we're here. So we'll go ahead and get started and begin the meeting. Sound check. So
Yeah.
how do you want to do this?
I'll start. Did you catch the intro, Jamie?
I did.
Okay, and you can hear me, Chuck?
I can.
Can you talk to Jamie and say hi, Jamie?
Hi, Jamie.
Can you hear
Good
me?
morning.
Okay.
Good morning, Jamie.
Good morning, Susan.
Hi, Jamie.
Good morning, Martine.
Good morning, Jamie.
Morning, Janice.
This is fun.
Okay, would you like to say hello?
I was.
I think
Morning,
that's pretty
Jamie. This is
Good
Helga.
morning.
That's Helga.
Okay, so Jamie Goldstein, who is the chair, is at a remote location from Miramonte Hotel lobby, 45,000 Indian Wells Lane in Indian Wells, California, 92210. For those who want to catch the proceedings from there, you better hurry.
All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. And we have two new old faces, I guess, although you guys look exactly the same as when I met you 20 years ago. Chuck and Rich,
Hello.
who have come back for more fun than punishment, I guess. All right, so we'll get started and call the meeting to order. Can you please have a roll call?
Chair Goldstein,
Here.
Vice Chair Bernal,
Here?
Board Member Comstock,
Here.
Board Member Moriello.
Here.
Okay, so we're all here. Next item on the agenda is the additional materials. Is there any additional materials? I guess we have these given to us this morning.
Yeah, what you have here are copies of the presentation that'll be coming up later on in the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Any additions and deletions to the agenda?
None.
Okay, great. Next on the agenda is oral communication, and this is an opportunity for anybody in the public who wishes to address the board on any item that is currently not on the agenda. Is there anyone who'd like to speak during this portion of the meeting, oral communications? Okay.
There's nobody here in Indian Wells.
What? How can that be? Okay. All right. Good to know, Jamie. Thank you. Then next we have the executive director report, and that's under Executive Director Rich. Anything, Rich?
Sure, I've submitted the report summarizing my activities for about the last 10 days, 2 weeks. Any questions on that? Then I recommend that the board receive the report.
I make a motion that we receive the report and thank the interim executive director.
All right, second. All those in favor? Oh, actually, is there anyone in the public who would like to comment on this or has any questions on the executive director report? Okay, so with that, all those who support the motion say aye.
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 Then aye, Jamie. Okay, great. So that gets approved. Next is the consent calendar. We have one item on the consent calendar, which is the minutes. Is there anybody in the public who'd like to comment or speak on the consent calendar?
Move approval of the minutes.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Moving on to the next item, which is general business, and we have 3 items this morning. The first is a presentation of voter survey results by Jean Bregman, who's here today, so I'll turn it over to Jean. Thank you, Jean, for being patient.
Thank you, Martine. Jamie, can you hear me okay?
I can.
Good. Okay. So we did another survey, the last and best survey for our ballot measure, which we hope will put on the ballot come June to raise a whole bunch of money to fix up our libraries. Interviewing was done, and there's a couple weeks ago in January 21st, 22nd, I guess we started it and finished over the weekend. 400 interviews, margin of error was our usual plus or minus 4.9% at its highest. And so we've got a bunch of charts which will kind of summarize the results and compare them to the other studies we've been doing over the course of these last 2.5 or so years. We started out, the first question we asked is always the general job rating on Santa Cruz libraries. There's excellent, good, only fair, or poor. These are the percentages of the 5 studies that gave positive, excellent, good ratings. It was a little bit higher the first time, 2.5 years ago, but other than that, extremely consistent and extremely positive. 76, 72, 77, this time 74% positive ratings, and at the same time, only 1% giving a poor rating. So people, as always, think very highly of the libraries. People who end up supporting the ballot measure, people who use the libraries or the website, and Democrats and independents are a little more likely to give a positive rating. Opponents, undecided voters, Republicans, and people in the 5th suit district are a little less likely. And also people in what we call an expanded Scotts Valley area, beyond just the city of Scotts Valley, which is too small in itself, are a little bit lower. But everybody's still very positive. That's the most important part. Chart 2, the second of our 3 initial questions, is getting an assessment of how much need people think there is for more money in general for the libraries. A great need, some need, little need or no real need. And again, the numbers are say quite consistent over the last little more than a year. Actually, really since April of 2014, very consistent. The great need, 36, 33, 32, 35. The combined great some need, the last 3, 67, 69, 68. The good news with that is that the combined great and some need compares favorably with the 67% that will need to pass something. So there's at least a basic understanding that there is a need for more money. In chart 3 is the other need, which is more for money to repair, maintain, modernize local library facilities. And sort of similar responses we got to the need for more money. The great need's a little bit lower, but the combined is up at 69%, and it's been at 68 and 67. A little more recognition of this need in the city of Santa Cruz, the Live Oak, and Aptos areas as well. And of course, less among the Republicans and no voters, more among the Democrats and independents. And then we get to question 4, chart 4, which is we've summarized 3 different times in the survey that we asked people to vote on what would be something similar to what they actually will see when they go into a voting booth or open their absentee ballot at home, the little 75-word statement. Now, before, I just want to mention one thing, just to make sure that people were voting as they would be voting come June. We also would read to them and asked them about the bond measure that Cabrillo Community College is putting on, and that's district-wide. And then for that small group of people, about 8% who live in the Live Oak School District, we also read them there. So they voted on all 3. We told them there's going to be these 3 ballot measures, so they were aware of them even before they heard the 3 summaries, and then they voted on as they would see in the same order. Just as an aside, the Cabrillo College will need 55%, got 70% yes, and the Live Oak, although I'm loath to even talk about with so few people, but they're up in the high 70s in their yes. But then it gets down to our votes, which is what's really important, at least to us anyway. And the first time we asked the ballot measure, with consultation with council, the new wording talks about giving the facilities financing authority to issue $67 million in bonds with no mention of tax percentages as a bond measure. And we start out at 73%. We then follow that with saying, okay, how would you feel about this now, knowing that it's a $49.50 special tax for homeowners, and then it drops down to 69%, which is not that big a drop. At the end of the survey, the last 3 sets of bars there, after they hear reasons to support and oppose the thing, we go back up to the 75%. We tell them, at the end, we told them it's the bond, $67 million bond with $29.50 special tax. So they got to hear the whole thing again. Generally, higher levels of support among the people who use the library or the library's website. Renters, people who have kids, people in the city of Santa Cruz, and those in Suit District number 3, people in the Live Oak area. Younger people and Democrats are all more supportive. Less supportive, people who don't use the libraries, although I think that they get a lot more of no opinion rather than no vote particularly. Homeowners, people without kids, that Scotts Valley area. People who are permanent absentees are a little bit lower, which is a question, since there are quite a few of those now. I guess our permanent absentees are about half the voters. That's just in our first vote. By the end, the strongest support are voters, just generally the voters under 50 years old, who are up around 90% supporters. The lowest level of support, and about the only one at the end of the survey that's still below our 2/3 are older men, being over 50 years of age. Now, chart 5. Chart 5 is the probably most illuminating chart in the whole survey, because it compares the votes we had in the different polls. In the first poll we did back in August of 2013, we talked about a bond measure. And then now this time we've also talked about a bond measure in our first votes. Identical and very positive responses at 75 and 73%. After that first poll, starting in April of 2014, we started talking about as a special tax or parcel tax. And also that's been consistent, 69, slightly lower, 65, 68. This time when we did the follow-up question, telling them that this bond would be $49.50, that gets up that same 69%, very similar. But the important point is those first 2 bars there, that this is now a bond measure. And that's what it really is. And we can tell them that. It's always been that, but I guess the attorneys got on board with a conference call and said, no, this is how you have to do it. And it makes all of us very happy. Chart 6 is our 5 reasons people might give for opposing the measure. And we asked them, does each one make you much more likely, somewhat more likely to oppose it, or make no difference to you one way or the other? The most effective item is, it was just a few years ago, we gave the libraries a permanent quarter-cent sales tax, and it's been tax will last for 30 years. They should not be getting taxpayers for any more money, but still only 25%, much more likely. Older voters, homeowners, people who vote no, and the Republicans find all these items to be a little bit more effective. But the percentages are relatively low and well below what would be a real problem in and of themselves. Okay. Then chart 7A, and now we had about 13, I think it was, the reasons in favor of the measure, and each one of these make you much more likely to favor the measure, somewhat more likely, or have no effect on your opinion one way or the other. These are the 5 on this chart 7A, the top scoring items, and they're some of them are new and new wording that Jeremy Hauser, who was next to me from TBWB, and Jared Boygan wanted to take a little different take on things, and they some of them are kind of similar, others did really, really well. And some of the things we tested before, we started out with libraries are an important after-school resource for children that offer free tutoring, homework centers, and a safe place after school. The second one, the local libraries, including the downtown branch, have 50-year-old wiring. One building dates from 1893, and rewired from the 50s. The 55%. Item C, which is all about the library's importance to seniors at 53. Programs for young children, item H at 53. And the problems with roofs is also at 53. These are the 5 top scoring items. But if you look at the next chart, you see that none of these are terribly far behind. But essentially, everything we're saying about the libraries is effective with the voters. And I will leave it to these guys to figure out how best to communicate with the voters the various themes that have arisen out of the poll. Generally speaking, more of the items are more effective. People who use the libraries, renters, people who are already voting yes on it in the beginning, and people who live in the city of Santa Cruz. So that's our last summary chart. In short, we are all very happy now that we can call this what it is, which is a bond issue. And I'm not sure how we got derailed from that in the first place, but it happened. With that in mind, I think we have a much better chance to be successful come June than we all were worried about for the last 2.5 years or thereabouts. And as far as, well, I guess before I turn it over to Jeremy to take you through some next steps, I should probably have any questions.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I understand how the questions were asked with regard to the other bond measures.
Okay.
So if I was a survey participant and I was living in an area that included both Live Oak and Cabrillo,
Right.
you would ask me, do I think we need more money? You know, what I think about the libraries, do I like it, et cetera? And then
we said there are going to be, for someone who lives in that Live Oak area, there are probably going to be 3 measures on the ballot.
the first one is Cabrillo and it will do this. Will this make-
Yeah, and the second one is Live Oak, and it'll do this, and the third one is for the libraries. And then we read the actual statement, something as close as we could get to what we knew for Cabrillo and Live Oak, the ballot, 75-word ballot statement, and they asked them to vote on them in order. So that before they voted on any 3 of them, they knew they were going to have to vote on 3 for these 3 different entities.
Okay. So I would have been told that there's a Cabrillo measure, a Live Oak measure,
Right.
and a library measure.
Right.
And then I would have been asked, will you support the Cabrillo measure, the Live Oak
Having
measure?
read them the whole paragraph. like
Having
ours.
read them the whole paragraph, and the library would have been the third one that you
Right.
asked them?
Right, because that's the way it'll appear on the ballot.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you.
Any other questions from the board members? Jamie, do you have any questions?
No, I don't.
All right, well, next I go to Jeremy Hauser from TBWB, who will talk to you about the next steps.
Thank you, Gene. Like Gene mentioned, I'm Jeremy Hauser with TBWB Strategies. We've been working with you and staff in preparation for a revenue measure, and I just wanted to quickly summarize some of the findings that we found from Gene's survey and work them into some next steps that we think are important as you're preparing for a revenue measure. So first, I think the biggest takeaway for us is that voters really view your libraries as a community resource for everyone. When you're looking at a facilities measure, you're inclined to think about buildings first, but I think it's equally as important to think about the people in those buildings. And in Gene's slides where we talked about the arguments in favor, nearly all of the top testing arguments focused on individual library users. And that type of user spanned a wide range of ages and types of people. So we saw students, seniors, young children, disabled residents, low-income residents, veterans, and others, all people that rely on your libraries. When our messaging was framed with them in mind, it was compelling to voters. So I think it's important moving forward and telling the story. Yes, we're talking about the facilities needs, but we're also talking about how those needs affect the users in the library. Second, we found that system-wide improvements are compelling to voters, particularly as they relate to updating wiring for and improving access to modern technology, and also fixing old and leaky roofs. I think it's important. We know that not some roofs are older and leakier than others, but universally, they were a compelling reason to support a measure to vote. I think
Interestingly, more than the technology things, which,
right.
you know, I would assume everybody's kind of...
And we found that people think about technology when it's put in a frame of reference that we haven't rewired since the 50s and one building was built in 1893.
Right.
So it's not about new and flashy, it's about bringing up to speed.
Yeah.
And then a third thing we found is really, it's important that we focus system-wide on all of your branches. This survey really told us that voters think of your library system as a community, not as a bunch of individual branches. And while each individual branch provides a great service and a unique service to their community, when we're thinking in terms of communicating on a broad scale, it's important to think of all 10 of your branches as one community. On the next slide here, I just wanted to run through our proposed ballot question. And like Gene said, we've been working with legal counsel to structure a 75-word statement that is both legally viable and politically viable. And we are confident, looking at the results of Gene's survey, that these 75 words are going to build you guys a strong measure. You'll see that it's about modernizing, upgrading, and repairing. We touch on a lot of the communities in your district, and then hit on the repairs that this measure would do. And then also you'll see that there's this added support growing use by children, seniors, veterans, and others. Again, that's to touch on this idea that your libraries are a community resource for all. And then, like Gene mentioned, we talk about issuing bonds, that you as the facilities financing authority have the authority to do so within your community facilities district, and that by paying for the bonds, you're going to levy a special tax within that community facilities district, establish an initial appropriations limit, and assure mandatory accountability. And again, in constructing this, Jeremy and Jared at TVWB are worried about political viability, but we also want to work with your legal counsel to ensure that it is a legally strong measure, and we've achieved both of those things here. Next slide, we just wanted to talk about some next steps. First, if Gene and I haven't already made it crystal clear, a June 2016 ballot measure is definitely viable and feasible, and so that the next big step is adopting that resolution that'll place it on the ballot next Thursday. And then from there, we are going to work with staff on an informational mailer to all registered voters in your district that's going to update them on the needs in your district, update them on kind of the messages and themes that I discussed previously, and also announce to them that you have decided to place a measure on the June 2016 ballot. And again, that is pending your decision on February 11th. And then finally, it's really time to pass the buck to the advocacy campaign. And there's certainly work to be done, but everyone should be very confident that the independent campaign committee that's already been formed is willing and able to do the work needed to pass a measure. So again, I just wanted to recap that really quickly, and if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
As a voter, when do I see in the ballot packet, the argument for the summary, the $49 price tag?
You will actually not see it in the 75-word statement. It'll be in the full text of the measure.
The full text, they'll be there. Do you expect an argument against this thing coming up forward? Down the road?
There's a possibility. Oftentimes, we've seen in our work that an anti-tax person will file an argument against and leave it at that.
Okay, great.
Put something on the ballot and not really run any sort of campaign.
But you prepared the rebuttal and everything?
Absolutely.
Okay, great, thanks.
Any other questions? Jamie, have any questions for Jeremy?
I don't have any questions. I did want to update the board when it's appropriate about the work I've done with Cynthia on identifying possible signers for the ballot argument in favor.
Okay. All right. Why don't we just see if there are anybody in the audience that'd like to comment on both Gene's presentation or Jeremy's presentation? Anybody have any comments or questions? It's a really quiet group.
So I have one question for Jeremy. Jeremy, the full text of the measure, do we have that in our packet?
I'm not sure if it's in today's packet.
It's in the resolution calling the special election. It's on page.
Which is what we're going to be.
That's the
Yeah, I'm just wanting to understand the answer that was given to Chuck. So
It's on page 43 of your agenda packet.
43.
Oh, okay, there it is, the resolution. I guess I don't.
Yeah, this is the ballot tag measure.
Yeah. Yeah, so that, but I'm trying to find his $49.
Yeah.
Me too.
So this is just a 75-word statement, so it'll be in the ballot language. And bond council, we can confer with.
So that's not in here at this
No,
point?
it's not.
Okay, all right, but it will be there and it will have it, because I don't want people to say, we're hiding the eight
Yeah,
ball.
Does it take the form of a ordinance, or is it?
Scott Ferguson of Jones Hall will be here next week for our public hearing that we're going to continue to, so.
We could ask him that.
Because at least
Okay.
in the city, I'm not as familiar with countywide ones, it's the actual specific ordinance language
Yeah,
is
that's what
included
we
in the
do.
measure, right? Which is very
Yeah.
specific and has the numbers and all of that. Yeah, so it has all the financial.
Lots of words.
Exactly. It's very-
Yeah, I'll get a hold of Scott and
Yeah.
and get a date for when that's gonna
Right,
come out.
because I think, we have to be transparent about it. I appreciate
I agree.
the work that was done on coming up with the ballot statement. It's great. It's, terrific. I was really, really pleased to see the changes there.
I will point out that the rate and method of apportionment, beginning on page 31, does show the
Right.
rates that we will be charging. So they're in a table on page 34.
Yeah,
Right, and this is probably, will be part of the,
That would be
part of it,
the
yeah.
text.
yeah. Yeah, that's normally the case, obviously. That's right, it's 34.
well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Alrighty. Again, any other comments? No? Okay.
Is this the time to hear Jamie's comments?
Oh, yeah, so Jamie, you wanted to give an update on the, I guess it's the campaign group? So go ahead, Jamie.
Okay. Sure, thank you, Martin. I just wanted to let the board know, remind the board that at the last meeting, you charged me was working with Cynthia to try to develop a list of potential authors for the arguments in favor and potential rebuttal if there is an argument against it submitted. So I think we're 99% of the way there, just trying to work out the last couple names, and I anticipate that we should have a list ready for board consideration. I don't know if next meeting or the following meeting after that, but we're aware of the deadline, and we're working on it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions from anyone on this item A? Okay, so I don't think this requires any formal actions, just we can continue. Okay, thank you, Jean, Jeremy. We'll move on to the next item, which is the item related to the resolution that we just talked about. And as I understand, we need to continue this in order to meet the legal noticing requirements. However, since it was noticed today and agendized, we want to nonetheless open the public hearing and see if there's anybody in the public who would like to address
So
this. Is that right?
let me suggest that the board first receive the CFD report as prepared by NBS, and then direct staff to go ahead and file that. And then after that, open the public hearing would be appropriate.
Okay, so why don't we do that then?
Okay, so you have in your packets the report, CFD report prepared by NBS. A lot of that information is contained in the approval documents that will come at the public hearing. If you have any questions with regards to information from NBS, we can answer those. But the report is prepared and expected to be received by the board as part of the appropriate legal proceeding.
Okay. It starts on page 9. Any questions?
So the report from NBS is basically the rate and apportionment report is what we're talking about.
The boundaries and that's pretty much what it is.
And then there's the resolution, but that's probably Jones Hall who did that.
Yeah, the resolution is prepared by Jones Hall, and that's subsequent to, should be considered by the board subsequent to this. And also defines what facilities are and provides you a cost estimate.
Yeah.
And these are the types of information that's required by the Belarus law for your board to receive.
Yeah, so here, questions for that. Anyone have any questions? Because we'll have another opportunity to look at it next time.
Once, next week, once the resolution is considered, much of this information is a part of the resolution.
Yeah. Well, I think they're very well done. I appreciate that they tried to be as specific as they could, but allowed, you know, for flexibility in terms of the development of the plans, because there's much of what we're talking about doing, we don't have detailed specifications and plans on. We'll be developing those as a part of the measure. And so I think it gives a lot of specificity and yet clarity that, you know, that there's details still to be worked out, and that's great. And the rate and method of apportionment, again, is a very simple one, easy to explain. I think we'll, you know, not have this kind of issues we were having amongst ourselves when we were trying to be a little bit more complex in our approach. So I support it and would look forward to any public comment and continuing the matter to our next meeting for further discussion.
So we'll go ahead and open the public hearing then, see if there's any... No?
Just please direct staff to file this, the report.
Okay. So
I would make a motion that we direct...
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Danny?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I did have a question on page 35.
Okay.
I note that in there defining the CFP public facilities means that it says $78,100,000 in 2016 dollars, and everywhere else we're using a different figure. We're using $67 million. Is that? Just want to make sure that that's correct there.
Jamie, I in fact did call NBS, who prepared that number, and asked them exactly the same question, and they said that this is a prescribed formula, and yes, that number is correct.
Okay, good. Thank you for confirming.
Okay. All right. So,
And also, in addition, Mr. Chair, I would recommend that we do a roll call vote on this, just to make sure everyone's clear since I'm not there.
sure, I can do that. Okay, so is there a motion to, is it to accept the report? To file the report?
Yeah.
Accept and
And
file.
direct staff to file.
I would make a motion that we accept the report and direct staff to file it as required.
Second.
Okay, is there a motion second? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote then. Go ahead.
Chair Goldstein,
Aye.
Vice Chair Bernal,
Aye.
Board Member Comstock,
Aye.
Board Member Moriello.
Aye.
Okay, so that passes unanimously. Thank you. So now we'll open the public hearing.
Okay, so now's the time appropriate to open public hearing. Take any comments that you might hear from the public during this hearing. Do not close the public hearing, but continue the public hearing afterwards to 1 o'clock Thursday, February 11th. At that time, staff will also bring back the comments that were made, if any, at this public hearing for consideration, and at the February 11th, you can take action. And when you do close the public hearing, then at that time, the various resolutions will be considered individually.
Okay, so with that, is there anyone in the public that wants to address us on this item?
Did you open the public hearing?
Yes, so we'll open the public hearing. Okay. Looks like there isn't anyone. Okay, so with that, then do we need a motion then to continue the hearing to?
Yes, I would make a motion that we continue the hearing till February 11th at 1 o'clock in this location, so that we can consider any further public testimony that may be provided at that time.
Second.
All those in favor, please
Do a
say
roll
aye.
call vote.
Roll call vote? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote again.
Chair Goldstein,
Here, yes.
It's an aye, but you're not really there.
Vice Chair Bernal,
Here, or aye?
Board Member Comstock,
Aye.
Board Member Moriello.
Aye.
All right.
So that passes unanimously.
Yes. Okay, so with that, we can move on to the next item, which is item C, which is an item related to the preparation of information mailer fact sheet in the approximate amount of $37,000. We have a report?
Yes, I do. This is a part of an existing contract with TBWB, and it's to create a fact sheet that will be suitable for mailing and mailing to approximately 75,000 households. The contract already contemplates the idea of this. There was a list of a couple of different opportunities. What's being recommended here is the 11 by 8, I think, 11 by 17 single fold sheet to be mailed.
Wow.
And the cost of doing that will be about $17,000, and the postage will be somewhere in the neighborhood of $20,000. The contract suggests that the authority should give direction prior to the time this activity is undertaken by TBWB, and so we're asking for that direction now.
Okay. All right, any questions for Rich? Do you have any questions, Jamie, on this item?
No, I don't.
So on second thought, I did have one question, and again, I know that this would provide for this specific mailer that's being discussed, but if during the campaign we determine that we feel like people are getting confused about certain informational details and we want to correct misimpressions or misunderstandings so that people are able to vote on the ballot measure that's really before them, not what somebody else might tell them it's there, not a political, mailer, but an educational mailer. Would we be able to do that? Would you give us that kind of advice as a part of this agreement? And
We could, so long as it remained informational, like you suggest.
like I suggest. Okay. So you'll advise us if you think we need additional informational mailers between now and June?
Correct.
And that's
We found that the closer you get to an election date, the more careful we should probably be.
Right, and we appreciate you keeping us honest in that regard. But I did want to just make sure that if we take this action, that there will be sufficient flexibility to respond quickly, because oftentimes these things get worse as time goes on.
Sure.
So staff will have
And
whatever
that's under the existing contract, that advice, yes.
Okay. You still with us, Jamie?
I am.
Okay.
Okay. We'll see if there's anybody from the public that'd like to address us on this item. Any questions? Okay, thank you, Jamie. Then the recommendation before us is to authorize the interim executive director to direct the firm of TBWB to prepare an information flyer fact sheet in the amount not to exceed $37,000 and direct staff to prepare a budget amendment to reflect current and future estimate costs for a program to develop, bring to ballot, and implement special tax for library facilities, including these TBWB costs under current consideration.
So let me talk about I should have gone a little bit deeper into the recommended budget amendment. Currently, the LFFA, which is a recent entity, does not have a budget. And so this is just suggesting that, or recommending that we come back with the budget so you can, see what the costs are going to be and what they have been, plan for that, approve it so that we have a fiscal management mechanism in place for our authority.
And the budgeting will happen in the
Next
library.
You have choices, and so I can bring back the choices. The law contemplates various options. If you want to have the budgeting and all that occur in the library, I think that can be done. You can also have it occur in the LFFA. Looking ahead, I am thinking that perhaps some of these initial costs that have been invested by the library JPA, or perhaps even the member agencies, would like to be recovered. And to the degree that we've identified them specifically as LFFA costs, those reimbursements could be done more easily. But that would be a decision at the March meeting when we were making that preparation. So that's the thought behind that. And we'll give you some choices.
Okay, great.
Well, I would move the recommendation as presented and request that TBWB advise us if additional educational materials are required between now and June.
Okay, there's a motion second. Do you want to do a roll call vote again?
Yes, please.
Chair Goldstein,
Yes.
Vice Chair Bernal,
Aye.
Board Member Comstock,
Yes.
Board Member Moriello.
Aye.
Okay, so that passes unanimously as well. Thank you, Rich. And then that concludes our meeting.
Yes, and so when you adjourn, I recommend you adjourn it to February 11th.
Devin, 1 p.m.
At 1 p.m.
Here
In this building.
This building.
This
Right,
main place.
the agenda, what's listed on the agenda is incorrect, so just note that.
Well, we didn't know it'd be incorrect until after we continued the public
That is the meeting after the 11th is correctly posted for March
Yes,
3rd.
yes. But this meeting will be continued to the 11th.
Got it. So there's an in-between meeting. Okay, great. All right, thank you. So we can move on to the next
Thank you, Board.
meeting.